Sekeres Price for Friday, May 3rd, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. And if you're heading to a game or an event in downtown, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sassett, and Switches conducting things with Sean Chessman. Big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in Langley. Fabulous deals right now in the iconic 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. You've always wanted one. Go get one right now. Lease it from 2.99% for 24 months or finance it at also 2.99% for up to 24 months. Only at Applewood Nissan in Langley. It is all good at Applewood.
Poll question today. Are you confident the Canucks will win the series? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. And Blake, I voted yes. I voted yes because they have two cracks at this. They are the better team. I would have to think that they're going to get one of these three games, drop game 5, but I would have to think that the better team, the better talent gets one of these three games. Also, looking to go 5-0 in Nashville. They have won every game at Bridgestone Arena. Now, some would say law of averages swing the other way, but I think maybe even getting away from home might be helpful here. So I voted yes. I may amend my answer if we get to Sunday in Game 7.
Yeah, for sure. I've been 50-50 on all 5 games to this point. I've had nothing in my head to suspect one thing or another in any of these games. I've really thought them coin flips for the most part. But I think the Canucks, of all things, are more due to dictate their game than the other way around. If the Canucks can dictate their game, I think they win. Unlike the Preds, who I thought dictated games 3 and 4 in Nashville, but didn't win the game. I don't think there's much of a chance. Sorrow standing on his head, but he hasn't had to stand on his head just yet. And the little action he's seen, he's been okay at best. So I think the Canucks can finish the job in game number 6.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Mr. Lube. Artur Shilov's your expected starter for game 6 at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. And unlike the previous starts in this series, we suspect this one is more coach's decision over a now healthy Casey DeSmith.
Yeah, it sounds like Casey was ready to roll in game number 5, in fact, and ultimately passed over for Artur Shilov. So this is coach going on gut instinct. Coach going with the guy that maybe plays a slightly quieter game. And also a guy that probably is feeling pretty good about himself after a decent performance in game number 5, albeit in a losing cause. So I think this is probably stylistically, I do like Shilov's game better than DeSmith.
Agreed.
But the experience, it can't be accounted for.
I also like this because of what I said to you earlier in the week. I think you can go back to the veteran for game 7.
Sure.
Whereas if DeSmith stunk out the joint in game 6, that would have been an awfully big ask.
You don't drop a kid in for game 7.
For a game 7 coming back to Artur Shilov. So I agree with you stylistically. Look, goaltending has not been the enemy of the Vancouver Canucks throughout the series. 3 goaltenders have played. They've all played pretty darn well. And Shilov has done outstanding work in place of DeSmith and, of course, in place of Thatcher Demko over the last couple of games.
The top story brought to you by Mr. Lube. If you need a tire change or tire service, Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales. Drop by anytime for a rotation, repair, and balancing, servicing all makes and models, including electric vehicles, 16 locations in the Lower Mainland. For when you go to MrLube.com.
And while Mr. Lube has winter tires, we're out of that window now.
We are. A great retort from Basketball Phil, talking about my story from yesterday about David Copperfield's disappearing car. He said, did that disappearing car have winter tires on it? I don't suspect they'd go through that extra hassle.
Never let us live down winter tires.
No.
It is actually one of about 2 or 3 instances in the history of the show, which is now more than 11 years old, where Blake Price was legitimately angry with me. He is a most patient guy, Blake. He's got a very long fuse. He very rarely gets to that emotionally angry position, but winter tires got him there.
Makes one of us.
Grady, on the other hand, has been shook all week. Emotionally unstable, erratic, yelling at people.
I think we can pull back farther than that.
Playoffs, man.
Playoff-like intensity.
If you saw somebody admonishing someone on a SkyTrain recently for drinking and belching, that might just have been Grady Sass.
Right in my face. Nobody wants to breathe that in.
So he gets up and starts yelling at the guy. Okay.
You signed up for that. Signed on the New York subway last week. Taking full-on swigs. Yeah.
I'm also not allowed to live down my New York City subway experience with Mike Price and Mike Whittingham.
Kept his backpack on. I told Dolly about that as we were riding the subway.
It was an empty subway, so I kept the backpack on. We're on our way to MSG for the Canucks and Rangers. And then the next thing I know, a couple of stops later, like we're tightly packed in like sardines.
Yeah.
And I turn and I hit a lady and she goes, "Yo, you need to check that backpack." And Mike Whittingham sitting there just giggling like a schoolgirl.
We thought it the funnest day we've ever had. Yeah, it was great. We snapped some candid photos of you getting lit up. It was great.
Jammed subways, if you're not taking that backpack off, oh man.
They actually have signs up there.
No, but here was the thing. Like, I would have taken the backpack off had I known what was coming.
He didn't have his transition game. Gotta move. Gotta be nimble.
Well, there's so many trains. I'm thinking, what's the chances all these people are going to get on this train? Well, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're not in Subway City. They're in a smaller town. They're in Nashville. There's no subway up and down Broadway.
No, exactly. You walk everywhere in Nashville. And I have.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go through Canucks lose, Canucks win. Okay. The two results that are possible here and what the different elements of each would be. So we'll start with Canucks lose. Okay. So what would force a Canucks loss today? Nashville has them a fantastic game. Now, I'm not sure if games 3 and games 4 were exactly what Andrew Brunette was looking for. I would guess they're close to the best games Nashville can play. Certainly should have won game 4, lost it so late. So perhaps Nashville trots out one of those games again, and it's enough to beat Vancouver. Hey, UC Saros played his best game in game 5 of the series. This is a decorated goaltender. Maybe he has him a night, stands on his head, is impenetrable, and they scored just enough to beat the Vancouver Canucks. Maybe the Canucks goaltending implodes. Let's face it, it has been a very big ask to go to goaltender number 3 on the organizational depth chart. Maybe this is the night where Shilov just doesn't have it, and the Preds get over that way. Or maybe the Vancouver Canucks, the shooting, shots on goal, and the scoring just continue to be so impotent that they don't score enough goals and lose a tight 2-1, 3-2 sort of game.
Them at their worst.
Those are the routes I can see for Nashville victory tonight.
There's two things for me that jump out would be just inexplicably bad goaltending. I don't think they ask their goalies to be that good. Again, getting to 30 shots has been a struggle for the Nashville Predators too. So the only thing that would really just be like off the charts bad goaltending, or the PK, which has been great, coming back down to earth and giving up 2 to 3 power play goals.
Yep.
Which is part of the goaltending metric as well, because your best penalty killer is your goalie. But those would be the only things, because I think the Canucks can always muster 1 or 2 goals here. Mm-hmm. It's what gets Nashville to 3. And it's just simply bad goaltending, or them getting enough power plays that it makes a difference.
Good question. First 1 to 3 win tonight?
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think.
All right. So what would lead to a Vancouver Canucks win? Well, as mentioned, they're just a better team. They're just more talented, skater 1 through 18. And maybe that shines through today. Perhaps Elias Pettersson arrives into the series and has him a game. And
It's like a trade mid-series.
Yeah.
You've gone from a completely absent player to potentially a 100-point player being dropped into the series if he can find his game.
more on him in a second because Harmon Dial did a terrific article. Dranson Dial did a terrific article on this on The Athletic. So PD arrives. Maybe some of those lost forwards contribute. Huh? Maybe some of those guys who are drifting at sea. Nils Höglander, Ilya Mikheyev, Sam Lafferty, Pius Suter. Maybe Pius Suter stops hitting goalposts, starts hitting the net. Maybe Höglander is finally through the jitters, whatever, that has caused him to be a virtual zero through 5 games in this series. Of course, had an outstanding regular season.
Even Lindholm, who's been good, counting stats wise, it's not been gaudy. I mean, if Lindholm has a goal and an assist tonight, I think they win.
Right. Perhaps Sam Lafferty turns that one good shift he has per game into a goal. God knows Ilya Mikheyev is due.
Teddy Bluger. Oh
Teddy
my God.
Bluger. What else? Hey.
Hronek?
Maybe Filip Hronek loads up that big right-handed slap shot and actually gets it on goal and past the goaltender tonight. Is that too much to ask?
It might be at this rate.
That's something that surely at some point has to happen, right?
Who had Zadorov outscoring Hronek since the All-Star break? That J-Pat stat yesterday.
Or maybe, just maybe, like dare to dream here, the power play gets a goal. Maybe even 2, like in game 3.
Yeah, like teams do score
They have
multiple power play goals
in one game this year.
Yeah.
1 in this series.
It reminds me, I never brought it up at the time, but the crazy comeback for the Vancouver Canucks in game 4. The only thing crazier than that was San Jose's comeback against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, with all the power play goals on the 5.
4 power play goals.
Was it on a 5-minute major?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ultimately they actually gave up the lead again. It'd be 4-4, went to overtime, and and San Jose completed the comeback in overtime.
One of the crazier games in recent Stanley Cup playoff history.
But that was 4 power play goals on 1 penalty, for God's sake. So, yeah, you're allowed to use your power play to your advantage.
Please.
Let's hope the Vancouver Canucks are reminded of that.
And
one game.
And again, it is looking at it. Power play hasn't been great since the All-Star game. So maybe that continues. Or, God, they're due.
Blind squirrels find nuts.
There's so much talent on that first power play unit, especially with the change that he's made in series. Really, the only change he has made in series outside of the forced ones at in the goal of Lindholm for Garland.
They get to 30 shots tonight, Matt, and they win. They get to 30 shots.
But Blake, they are so far away from 30 shots. We talked about it the other day. 18 shots. It's almost 6 fewer than the next worst team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It is 10 off their regular season average. They average 28 and change shots per game in the regular season. They're at 18 and 92 shots in the series. It's the second fewest ever through 5 games of a Stanley Cup playoff series.
But it's too inexplicable. It's too much for the Preds to sustain. Like the Preds are due.
So you think the dam breaks here today? That the shot blocking stops. Some of them get through. Some of those guys maybe, Flamingo or aren't as courageous, aren't as eager to jump in front of Canuck shots.
I'm not maligning the Preds when I say this because I think they're a very good team and their second half belies that. I think they have played this series rather perfectly for what they are. I really do. And aren't they due for a stumble? Because the Canucks have certainly had a stumble and they've lived to tell the tale. They've won games in which they've stumbled mightily.
Right. Well, I think if you're in Nashville, you look at it, you absolutely deserve to lose game 2 and you won it. You absolutely deserve to win game 4 and you lost it.
Yeah.
You probably weren't the best team in game 5. You probably weren't the best team in game 1, and you've split those as well.
They've had chances that weren't credited as shots on goal. Those chances just need to end up in the back of the net now.
Right.
Like, honestly, if I really think that game 5's effort was probably enough to win on a lot of nights. They have to be just marginally different, if not better, than they were in Game 5. Just a little different in how they execute, and they win Game 5.
Canucks are 2 for 13 on the power play, 15.4% in this series. The one thing I'll give them, and perhaps we should have listed this under routes to victory for Nashville, their power play is 2 for 19, 10.5%. Canucks penalty killing has been terrific throughout the series,
but not lucky terrific. Not like our goalie's doing it all. Like not even allowing an entry. Like a couple of those penalty kills were ridiculous. Like every entry they get in 15 feet, and the Canucks would just send them all the way back down the end of the ice.
I mean, you asked for 30 shots. Let's just start at 20. Their series high is 21.
30. They're getting to 30. They're going to shoot.
As mentioned, terrific, in-depth, thorough piece on The Athletic today from our buddy Harmon Dial of Canucks Conversation and Tom Strantz on Elias Pettersson's struggles. So, first of all, Elias gave a flippant little answer when asked about his struggles, saying he feels awful and why am I even playing, and dripping with sarcasm. And frankly, that's an act that's going to start wearing thin if the bottom line doesn't come around.
Right.
Yeah. But Elias allowed. He was probably too emotional in the first 2 games at Rogers Arena. He said the atmosphere was amazing. He got away from his game. He tried to do too much. Fair enough. Again, for Stanley Cup playoff games in front of fans, his only other experience in the Edmonton bubble.
That's the X factor versus the bubble. Yeah.
Fair enough. And he's talked about how it is way different. He mentioned that you build off the fans' energy in this series, whereas, of course, that was not the case in the bubble. And frankly, later in the program, Brandon Sutter, who was also part of that 2020 Canucks team, with an excellent explanation of why the bubble playoffs were so different. You're going to want to hear it. But Drance and Dial continue and dig into the nitty-gritties. Of course, as we all know, Elias isn't a burner, and as we all know, Elias isn't a power forward. So he doesn't win with speed. He doesn't win with physicality. What he wins with is hockey IQ. And as they point out in some video clips, he's just not seeing it. He like the Twins, has that innate ability to sort of see the play materialize before others on the ice see the play materialize. Get the puck to good areas. Find himself shooting in passing lanes that others just aren't quite expecting. The stick handling, and many have talked about the stick handling, how much he's fumbling pucks.
It's inexplicable.
Now. And it's not just the fumbling of the pucks, of course. It's the fact that, the stick handling being so off right now is affecting the accuracy of his passes, not to mention affecting the shot, which at one point was such a weapon for them. And as we know, he misses those 2 empty nets in Game 2.
He's now stick handling very choppily.
Yeah.
If you look at it, versus the fluid balletic look that he had before. It looks like he's trying so hard to do it that he looks like he's being ordered to do his deeks, bro, rather than just doing them because he wants to do it. And yeah, you know what? I thought he's fought that for much of the season. So a lot of guys that are saying, oh, he must be injured. I don't know. I haven't seen him look his fluid self for much of the season. He got to, what did he finish with? 91 points, 89 points. I mean, amazing that he got to those totals, given I don't think he has, to the eye test, looked himself for the entirety of the year. Like, there's been a few moments, the goal against the Rangers at MSG, spectacular. But him even attempting plays like that has been so few and far between. It just has not been, whether that is between the years or physical limitation. I mean, maybe only him and the trainers know the answer to that.
This was the astounding stat that the Athletic dug up. Elias Pettersson has 3 passes in this series that have led directly to a shot attempt at even strength. 3. And that's just to a shot attempt.
Yeah. Yeah,
they also broke down the numbers, and of course we know he had that game 2 were all 9 shot attempts, none of them on net. His percentage of hitting the net in the regular season, 51%. It's more than half the time that he attempts a shot, he hits the net.
Yeah.
In these playoffs, 29%.
1 in 4 chance.
Sewered mostly by that game 2, where
Yeah.
he went 0 for 9.
But then he actually just went quiet and didn't take shots. So,
Right.
I mean, there needs to be some in between.
And we're not piling on Petey here. We talked about it. Höglander, Mikheyev have been zeros in this series. And as we all know, they were hunting another winger. They were even connected to Jason Zucker with Arizona before he got moved to Nashville at the deadline. I do think that Alvin and Rutherford are kicking themselves for not adding a winger. When you add Zadorov, you add Lindholm, are you not pot committed at that point? And yet, when the time came to add a winger, yes, at the cost of future prospects, assets, draft picks, what have you, and yes, with some requirement of salary brokerage or money going back, they didn't pull the trigger. And I do think they're probably going to kick themselves, particularly if they lose this series, that they didn't go out and get another winger, because it has been a glaring omission from the Canucks lineup, getting goals, points, or even just offensive threat off the wing.
And
it's been Brock Besser and pretty much nobody else.
that leads us to the lineup for today, which we got no further insight into because the optional skate was very optionally. And I wonder, and that would have been predicted because it's an early local start. It's a 6 p.m. local start in Nashville, so that generally those super early optionals are not well attended by the skaters.
4 o'clock for us. We'll be at Greta. Come join.
Looking forward to that. But I do wonder, Matt, if it does play into Rick Tocchet's favor a little bit. They practiced yesterday in their normal setup. I mean, is he really just going to go back to that well again and not make changes? Or does this act as a good smoke screen of surprising them with a whole new look here to start this game?
Well, the Athletic piece points out that Lotto Line has created a scoring chance, has drawn a penalty. Put it this way, I think you have to move more quickly to Lotto Line and more permanently to Lotto Line if things aren't going your way in the early going, particularly if you're having trouble getting shots on goal again.
I'm falling in love with a little bit with our late resolution in yesterday's show with JPAD. Like, what if you put Lindholm and Pettersson together, you keep the top line as it is, and you put Bluger with Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua back together again? Still gives you 3 lines.
Yeah.
I think you got the potential to have your cake and eat it too with those 3 lines.
And you just say, look, Elias, we know you've struggled. As our old friend Dave Tomlinson used to always say to us, it is very easy for a centerman to play the wing. You just go up and down.
You drop duties. You took away duties. It's easy.
You just go up and down your flank.
Yeah.
You make sure you're not caught too high in the defensive zone. And yes, you don't have all the extra energy spent on chasing around your fellow centerman.
You can just think
200
offense.
feet.
Think offense. Think shooting.
Right.
Harm had an interesting line combo mix. Now, it's not the best time to be experimenting, but he proposed you have Lindholm with Miller and Besser. You have Pettersson with Garland and Joshua, and you bump Teddy Bluger down to up to 3C, I guess, with Mikheyev, Höglander, and the fourth line looks Suter, Lafferty.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine too.
So is Lindholm playing center on the top line, or are you moving? Because
I guess it would.
Tocchet has said he's not. He's the center. I got to play him at center.
Yeah,
to me, so that's moving. That's moving Miller to the wing if you're doing that.
Strong side, weak side. Which I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd do that.
I don't like that. Because
I don't mess with JT right now
because your 2 best centers right now are Miller and Lindholm.
Right, exactly.
And you're taking that away. That doesn't make so much sense to me. I wouldn't call it experiment. All these suggestions are not experimenting. This is called adjusting.
No,
this is the playoffs.
No,
it's not working.
Bluger with Joshua and Garland is no fucking experiment. Works.
Woo. But even the other guys, even putting Pettersson and Lindholm together, which has not been done a whole lot, that's not experimenting. In the playoffs, you're adjusting. And guess what? The offense ain't working right now. It's just an adjustment.
Right.
So
Lot of line is not an experiment. Has a long history. No, not as much recently. And as Blake, also reminds, technically a lot of line is Miller on the left wing. But
yeah.
Again, don't mess with JT right now. He's one of the few things you got going for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, Elias is being very tightly marked on the power play. There's no question that Nashville has decided they do not want to get beat by Pettersson.
I think that's loosening it up, though.
It is.
I think they've just decided, let's not prioritize him. Let's watch out for Miller and Hughes more.
And then lastly, when's the last time, successfully at least, he's done his deeks, bro?
Yeah, successfully.
Is he doing his deeks?
No, there's not a lot of breakaways in this series anyway.
No, and nor will there be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear and I think this is much the player profiles in this series, particularly the Nashville side, more than it is actually a straight hardline coaching system. I think a lot of players on the Nashville Predators know I can't get beat on the defensive side of the puck. I'm not going to make that risk. I'm not going to take that risk or get myself out of position hunting a goal or an offensive opportunity that might be 50-50, because there's just not a lot of guys on the Nashville Predators who have the sort of offensive aptitude that they're going to be able to get away with that and be NHL players in the long term and stay out of the coach's doghouse, whomever the coach may be. So, no, I don't, as we know, the Canucks are not a rush team in the least, Blake. I mean, they're one of the worst in the league in terms of generating rush chances. They are very much a chip and chase team, very much a take care of the defensive detail and counterattack more than they are, let's leak a guy early on out of the zone and see if we can hit the home run pass with space and distance behind the defense.
I would love to see him below the goal line. He's had some success surprising goalies by just tucking it out in front, whether that's a successful wraparound or just chaos in the crease that leads into somebody else tapping it. Like something different. But I think they're due.
Well, I've been asking for something different from Pettersson for several games now. Go out on your first shift and just show Nashville something different. Whether that's attacking into the zone with speed, through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone with speed, whether it's trying to take the puck right to the goal, a Bo Horvat style play, a bull rush, whether it's a quick shot, whether it's a fake shot, and then really just something that they haven't seen yet in the series to put the seed of doubt in their minds that, maybe Pettersson is less predictable here tonight.
Move his feet. And he went to Tocchet yesterday and he said he acknowledged the fact that he needs to start doing that.
Yeah.
Which will then open up his chances to get those deeks off, to separate and get that shot off.
Right. Goaltending update here. And we're going to play some video here. Have we played the video already? Or
nope.
Okay.
Waiting for you.
Dan Murphy, of course, Canucks reporter for Sportsnet, saw Thatcher Demko skating today at the Bridgestone.
Not the first time he's been skating, by the way.
Not the first time he's been skating, but more encouraging signs for the Vancouver Canucks #1 netminder. Now, as we know, he's not going to factor into this series, and at best is going to be an option late in the second round series if the Canucks were able to advance.
But I like the timeline. Doing just even what we saw there in the video, project that 10, 12 days from now. You're probably in game 4 or 5 of the second round. You ask for a couple of decent games, maybe to steal a win versus the Oilers in the second round if they make it that far. And maybe you do see Thatcher Demko.
And we do have a second round game now officially on the docket. The Hurricanes and Rangers are going to open their second round series, game 1 on Sunday. That would also be the day for Canucks Predators game 7, as well as Dallas Vegas game 7, if they should come to pass.
So the NHL is committed now. We are going to do a little bit of overlap.
We are going to start round 2. I don't think they had a choice this year, Blake, because of how late the schedule was. This was something you saw in the NBA all the time and did not see in the NHL, or saw very rarely in the National Hockey League. They love to have everybody done in round one before they moved on to round two.
Much to their detriment at times.
Well, also a couple of things there. The NBA has in its bylaws that its team must control its building and have the first choice of dates. So oftentimes the NHL teams that share a building with the NBA team, and there's several, of course, Madison Square Garden being one, the TD Garden in Boston being another, and the Celtics and Knicks are through in the NBA playoffs. Formerly Staples Center, what are they calling it now? Crypto in Los Angeles.
.com arena.
Right, crypto.com arena, although the Kings are now done, but that's been another one. So good to see the NHL going there and getting some of those games scheduled. Of course, fans want to know as early as possible. They want to be able to plan accordingly. So, the way I see it, Blake, if they were to win and wrap up the series tonight, Pearl Jam Monday at Rogers Arena, is there any world where they would start them Sunday?
No.
Okay.
Not asking them to travel for home ice advantage 48 hours from now. No
Sunday, chance. Well, but Sunday is earmarked for Game 7, so they have already crossed the bridge with Pearl Jam to say, hey guys, we know you're playing your Saturday show, but we may have to take all that down, put the ice in for Game 7. So that bridge has already been crossed, but you just think the turnaround time would be too little?
Too little. You're not because it's not like you can turn and look at the divisional winner and say, well, you should have wrapped it up earlier. If it's Game 7, yeah, you should have wrapped it up earlier. Winning a series in Game 6 is pretty par for the course, and you're getting punished by having to turn around and travel across the continent.
So then you're thinking Tuesday.
And also the Canucks would lobby heavily for it to be Tuesday because it's costing them extra to do the quick changeover in and out of the Pearl Jam concert.
But here's we know television has its say too.
Yeah. But they've got content on Sunday already.
Well, they got a 1:00 game on ESPN, Blake.
Yeah.
They don't have an evening game. Would the Canadian would Rogers not ask for an evening game?
If
because the Leafs and Bruins are playing Saturday, so Florida versus whomever is not starting Sunday.
Let's see what happens with Vegas and Dallas too. If they go to 7, then I think.
So you think Vegas and Dallas might be the ones that Colorado versus
that would satiate them on Sunday night. Yeah.
All right.
And then what are you gonna do? They're booked on Monday. So, and by the way, hearing the Oilers side of things too, they got a ton booked in Rogers Place in Edmonton. So there's a bit of a hopscotch going on there for games 3 and 4, if they are indeed the visitors. They of course would host.
Right, of course they would.
If it was the Predators. Yes.
Yeah. Rick Tocchet is a Jack Adams finalist, confirming, what we knew, that this was one of the 3 best coaching jobs in the National Hockey League. In fact, for my money, it was far and away the best coaching job in the National Hockey League this year. Andrew Brunette on the Predators bench is another finalist, as is our old friend Rick Bowness, the happy Haligonian head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, who may actually not be head coach of the Winnipeg Jets by the time this award is handed out. So the Canucks Predators series has 2 of the 3 Jack Adams finalists. It has 2 of the 3 Norris Trophy finalists in Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi.
We should satiate some of the critics a little bit here that, this is a pretty good 8th seed here in the Nashville Predators, or 7th seed, pardon me, in the playoffs. Like, this is not your typical 1v4.
No.
And a very good team in the second half. And you can debate which is the real Preds first half or second half, but people would say the same thing about the Vancouver Canucks. So
Brunette did a hell of a coaching. Frankly, Brunette, I believe, is the runner-up here by margin too.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a funny season in the NHL's Western Conference. You think about all these teams that have had one half remarkably better than the other half.
Yeah. I like history. And so I love the piece the province did on the Vancouver Canucks and their Game 6 history. Of course, with regards to the Nashville Predators, the one and only time they played in the Stanley Cup playoffs previous to this was 2011. The Canucks won the series in 6 games in Nashville, so perhaps that's an omen, history repeating itself. In fact, even though that was the second round series, it happened in the same week. May 9th is the anniversary of that game, which just goes to show you how far back the NHL schedule has been pushed here, because if this one goes Game 7, you'd be playing it on May 5th. And typically you're into the second round or the end of the second round, as it was in 2011 at this point in the calendar. I think this is why you're seeing the overlap of second round and first round. The last time the Vancouver Canucks were in the postseason, they beat the St. Louis Blues in what was the second postseason series, but the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You may remember there were play-in series that year. They dispatched the defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues in Game 6 that year. Then they play Vegas in a Western Conference second round series. And Game 6, to this day, one of the single greatest goaltending performances in the history of the franchise. Thatcher Demko makes 48 saves in place of an injured Jacob Markstrom for the shutout and a victory to force that to 7 games. And then he shut out Vegas for 2.5 periods in Game 7 before they finally got one and added a couple of empty netters in a 3-0 Game 7 victory.
See, and that's, if you're thinking, oh, the Canucks might turn into a pumpkin in goal here versus the Preds, they haven't asked DeSmith or Shilovs to play like that. Like, they've protected these goalies a heck of a lot better than they protected Thatcher Demko there versus Vegas. Demko was asked to wear a cape and he wore it and he flew. They're only asking these two guys to be decent, and they have been.
Yes.
So, in that way, I think that whether it's DeSmith or Shilovs, I think it is kind of sustainable because they're not asking for 48 saves a night. Nor would they probably get it. I would guess.
Then there were, of course, 2 Game 6s in 94 that deserve mention on this list. 3-2 overtime win over Calgary in Game 6, Round 1. Trevor Linden with your game-winning goal. Of course, in Game 7, it was Pavel Bure in the double overtime winner. And then a game that to this day stands out in Canucks lore and subject to probably the most iconic call in the history of the franchise. Game 6 of the 94 Stanley Cup Final. The Vancouver Canucks defeat the New York Rangers 4-1. They force a Game 7. And Jim Robson's, he will play, he'll play. He'll play on crutches with regards to Trevor Linden, who was roughed up by the New York Rangers in that Game 6. So, a lot of iconic history with the franchise in playoff Game 6, and we wonder if they have another moment for us this evening at the Bridgestone Arena in Vancouver. What are you in Nashville? Grady, what is it?
Just the Canadian World Hockey Championship roster has been released. So
Bedard and Celebrini, North Vancouver boys playing together.
Yeah, interesting.
Fantastic.
Former Vancouver Canuck Jared McCann had said he's going to play. Former Vancouver Giant Bowen Byram is on that team. So there's some good VanCon, if you will.
Sure.
Brandon Tanev.
Dylan Gunther.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting choices. Ridley Gregg is going to bring some celebrations across the pond.
Come join us at Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova. We will be there for 4:00 and puck drop. Had a fantastic time there last Friday. Come on down. We are supporting tonight the Day One Dads Impact Foundation. It is a charitable organization focusing on supporting fathers, promoting fatherhood as an essential role in family and community development. There'll be a silent auction there, including some tickets to a Vancouver Canadians game, and those become a very tough ticket, of course, when the weather turns nice. We'll have a $200 gift card to Canucks Army and Nation gear that's going to be up for grabs, including a Greta gift card, also a Day One Dads prize pack, and a jersey of your favorite team. So come on down, say hello. Blake will be there. I'll be there. Get you set for another social outing. And we warned everybody at the beginning. In fact, we've been warning people for a couple of months. It has been a long time since we have done this. The playoffs don't just take attacks on players.
It's exhausting for us, too.
It's exhausting for you, the fan, too. We understand it. Pretty much every second night. your emotions are sky high or dip down low, just the emotional erraticism of it all. Then, of course, in some cases, you're maybe going to bed a little later. Haven't really had a long overtime game, but that can be a thing.
No, yeah.
And of course, if you're out and about, it's,
If we
going to cost you a little bit more too.
Has
So,
there
get
been a
your
double?
rest,
Has there been a double OT game yet in these playoffs?
I believe so.
The OT
There's
has
been, honestly, I was talking with a friend the other day, yesterday, I guess. This has been a kind of a dreadful first round for both the NBA and the NHL.
Yeah, not a lot of drama.
Not a ton of great games, not a ton of overtime games, lopsided margins.
Yeah,
I'm not sure there's a series out there as a neutral where I'm compelled. Now, Vegas, Dallas is getting there, and of course, Leafs Bruins now is going to Game 7, so everybody loves a Game 7.
Well, but this game this series has probably been the closest on the ice of all of them, but not going back and forth.
Maybe the least aesthetically pleasing with so few shots, right?
Yeah. It's been pretty intense, though.
No, it's had intensity, but Blake, I think that's in part because we're so invested in it. I'm not sure a neutral turns this series on. Saravelli was talking about this the other day. I'm not sure a neutral turns this series on and goes, this is must-see entertainment.
Well, we're trending upward.
Look at Nashville blocking shots.
Game 5 was probably the most aesthetic pleasing, so
fair.
Hopefully we're trending in the right direction.
Fair. All right, let's get to our menu today. It's brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. Ben Moss, proudly Canadian and owned and operated, history dating back more than 100 years, 5 locations in British Columbia, including Willowbrook and Langley, Coquitlam Center. Committed to customer satisfaction, you can check out a large selection of Canadian mine diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. These mine diamonds available with a payment plan that suits your needs. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, because love is timeless. Brandon Sutter, former Vancouver Canuck, is going to join us coming up here. Always been a great talker and communicator on the game of hockey. We catch up with Brandon personally, get his sense of this series and where it's going, sneak peek ahead to Edmonton if it comes to pass. Not to mention Brandon's experiences with a lot of these Vancouver Canucks in the 2020 bubble playoffs. Not to mention his experiences with them really as this team sort of grew up. It was a young JT Miller. It was a young Elias Pettersson, Thatcher Demko, Quinn Hughes when Brandon Sutter was playing for the Canucks. And he takes us through some of that as well. Patrick Johnston, as mentioned, he is joining us as well. Some interesting stuff from Patrick as well with regards to whether there were talking points, a communication strategy. Should Pettersson struggle in this series? He also has something very interesting to say about Filip Hronek and his future with the Vancouver Canucks based on what's happening in this playoff series, based on what's happened in the second half for Filip Hronek. So all of that is coming up, but it is time now for our Bet365 bet of the day. Bet365, a proud partner of Sekeres Price. Blake, you want to lead us off today?
Well, it's very interesting to look at the anytime goal scorers. Philip Forsberg of the Preds is the odds-on goal scorer in the game because he's really the only guy that can score for the Predators you can depend on. He's plus 105, but all the Canucks have got decent numbers attached to them. So I'm going to go with the guy with the hottest hand, particularly in Nashville. Brock Besser at plus 190 seems pretty generous.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you ask yourself the question, particularly amongst the Canucks wingers, if not Brock, then whom?
And if he scores 1, he'll equal Ryan Kessler's 5 goals.
Yeah, he will.
Preds in 6 games too, same rate.
Yeah, 11-point series for Kess, 2 game-winning goals in that 2011 second round. Blake, as you know, I like to play the ponies. The Kentucky Derby goes tomorrow from Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. It's known for huge fields, bad trips, unexpected winners. But here's the thing. There has been one telling figure about the Derby that has held up more often than not. Speed. Typically the winner.
No. In a race.
No, but here's the thing. With a 20-horse field or a 19-horse field, sometimes the speed isn't as significant because if you get blocked, a bad trip, that's just that. But horse racing has what they call Bayer speed figures. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of it,
God.
but basically they measure the horse's speed during its workouts. There are 6 horses in this field that are 95 or better. The horses are 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 17. I'm taking the 7. Honor Marie, like his speed, like his post, best yet, like his odds. He's 20-1 to win the 150th running of the Kentucky.
I was
Derby.
just about to say 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do you appreciate? But you went with 7, so that doesn't work.
He mocks me every time I make a horse. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And use code VANBONUS, VAN bonus, altogether all one word, when opening that account. Brandon Sutter is next. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Our next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day, May 10th. We are 1 week away here, Blake. Can't wait. Club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more, it is time to reach out and lock in that tee time for 2024. The prime times are filling up fast, and just for reaching out to hold that tee time, you, the organizer, plays for free. Tell us about your group. Whistler Golf Club going to take care of the rest. Tell us about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups. And then, of course, follow all the spring preparations. The course wintered fantastically, and all the Bears at Whistler Golf on social. Our next guest played 292 games for the Vancouver Canucks, including 17 in the postseason. The last time they were in the postseason, it is our pleasure to welcome back to Sekeres Price, the one and only Mr. Brandon Sutter. How you doing?
Hey, Brandon.
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're
Good.
fantastic. Talked to you last year. Just catch us up. How you doing? What's life like these days?
It's good. Yeah, my health's getting improving for sure. So it's been a rough few years, but life's good. Kids are good. We've got 3 little ones, so we're busy with them. And at some point, I got to find something to do job-wise because it's going to get a little bit boring once they're all in school. But right now, it's been fun, and I like being back home, and it's been so far so good.
I don't see you making coffees at Starbucks. Not that there's anything wrong
No.
with that, but will you be jumping into hockey, do you think? Do you see yourself jumping into the biz?
I don't know yet. I think it's hard. I think one thing I've enjoyed about not being in hockey right now is just the schedule. I can I can take weekends in the winter and take the kids to the mountains and things that I didn't get to do my whole life. And I got to go skiing a couple times this winter. Things that you've kind of missed since you were 14 years old. So I'm kind of enjoying that, but I don't know for sure what I'll get into. But it won't be sitting at a desk in an office, I don't think. I definitely need to be either in a hockey rink or outside doing something. So I'll wait and see what comes my way.
You attempted to come back this past season, Brandon. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, it was good. I'm glad I gave it a try. This time last year, I started to feel a little bit better compared to where I was in the wintertime. So I started feeling better, and I was able to train and started working out slowly, and I just started to realize I had a chance. And then July kind of rolled around. I talked to my agent. I said, I think I want to give this a try and see how it goes. And luckily Edmonton's about an hour and a half up the road. So I was like, well, if it's going to work out somewhere, hopefully it's in Alberta, it'll be easy. And I had an opportunity there, had a chance. And once we got into playing games and training camp, just the day after day after day, my health just started going backwards again. And I think, I was training in the summer. I was trying to train, take a day off, take a day off, just try to get myself ready. And that obviously doesn't work at the full season. So I had to give it a chance. I'm glad I did. It gave me a little bit of closure on it. I knew that at that point it was time to just move on, but it sucked to end that way. That's not how you not how you dream things going down when you think about your career. You think you're going to end with a Stanley Cup and then walk away like everyone hopes, but it's not the way it worked out. But it was a good opportunity there. They're obviously a good team there. They had a bit of a tough start to the season, but now they're rolling, and could be an interesting week.
Yeah,
next week if they're playing each other, so it'll be good.
More on that in a second, my friend.
Yeah.
First and foremost, how closely have you followed the Canucks? What do you make of the season they authored this year?
Oh, it was good. It was exciting. I think, I started, even we played them in preseason. The first game we played against them, that was I haven't played many games last couple of years, so it felt like I was being chased by 100 guys out there. But I think this summer when they brought in some, kind of veteran defensemen, you knew they were going to improve just with that. I think their depth right now is better than it's been in a long time, especially in the back end. They're solid. So right from the get-go of the year, they had a hot start, and then I think last year it was the complete opposite of last year for them. Last year they just started so poorly that you could never catch up, and they had a good second half, but you're still way so far out of it. But this year was a complete flip of that in the first half of the season. They started really well, and that's what sets you up. And then you come deadline, you're actually acquiring players and making yourself better versus trying to find ways to collect draft picks or whatever. So they're a deep team, and obviously when you have their goalies have been good too, so they'll have a chance.
You got a lot of teammates still on this team from the 21 edition of the Vancouver Canucks. Is it harder to watch then because these guys, they're your buddies? You feel like you want to jump in there?
Yeah, it's always bittersweet. Especially when you're not playing anymore. I think you wish you were still playing. I wish you could still. I think there's one thing I could say about not playing is you wish you could play one more playoff game. That's just it's the coolest thing. And obviously last time I got to do it was no fans, so it wasn't quite the same thing. But I'm happy for them and for the few guys I still keep in touch with on the team. It's a really good group of guys there, so I'm happy for them getting a chance. They've been through the grind the last couple of years, and it's finally kind of turned around for them.
Let's address the bubble here because you referenced it. We've referenced it a couple of times here, and as we look at this team now, and he
can speak freely now.
Yes,
too, on the bubble.
We evaluate the experience of this Canucks team that's relatively green for the playoffs, and we put an asterisk beside a bunch of the guys that their only experience is the bubble. Right. You've tasted both. You have to go back a few more years to see you playing in front of fans in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it 1.5 versus double the intensity of playoffs, or normally double the intensity of the regular? Was that 1.5 at least? How close? How reasonable a facsimile was the bubble to actual playoffs?
Well, you know what? This will be a debate that we can go on forever. But one thing I remember about the playoffs, we were in Edmonton. It was the first game, and I remember watching on the TV. It was Carolina playing the Rangers, and they had like a few fights in the first 10 minutes of the game, and I was kind of like, oh, this is actually this is the real thing, like we're gonna get after it. And right from the first series we had against Minnesota, it was an absolute war, and I was like, okay, this is still, for us, the hockey still felt like playoff hockey. There was no question, but there just wasn't the excitement of the fans. There wasn't the momentum changes because of the crowd or a big hit. Like those things were kind of just, there was a big hit and the play just kind of went on. So whether that made it easier for us or harder for us, I think that's probably a debate you can go on, because playing at home in playoffs is obviously awesome and it's great. But sometimes playing the road too, it's fun because there's so much energy. But there's not those moments where someone gets run over and chaos kind of ensues and they're so loud and you kind of lose track of where the puck is. And it's that excitement wasn't there, but the hockey was still tough. And I think getting up for a game in the bubble was the hardest thing you could probably go through as a professional hockey player, because there was no crowd. You had to find a way to rev yourself up. And we played some good hockey, but like you said, there's no fans there. It just isn't the same thing.
Hey, it was the first time through for Petey, for Quinn, for Thatcher. How did you think they did in the bubble? And what are you seeing these days in the Stanley Cup playoffs from, the two of them that are healthy?
Yeah, I thought the first year they were good, because I remember my first playoff game and I thought I knew what the intensity would be, and it's not there. You have to experience it to know what it's all about. And the good part about it is it makes you better down the road. So we know, like, even coming out of that, they were going to be better players. And I remember, especially playing against Vegas, I remember Quinn. He was a pretty undersized guy, young kid, and they were just running at him, and he was taking hits, but he just kept getting up and he kept going and kept pushing, and you just knew right then he had the character to do it. And Petey's been a guy that's been signaled out since he was a young player in the league, because they knew he was a talented player. His first year, guys were trying to take advantage of him and hit him around, but that's what happens to good players. That's what other guys' jobs is, to make it hard on their team's good players. So they're handling it well. And Quinn's become, he's a Norris finalist. I mean, he's been one of the best defensemen in the league last couple of years. And this year he was just on another level. I think he's the reason he's the captain. He's a great guy. He's great in the room, but I think the whole team runs through him and what he does. And he's a guy that can really control the play. So he's been playing well. And for Petey, I know he's maybe not scoring like he maybe would want to be right now, but it's playoffs. You're going to have games where you put up points and games where you don't put up points. And all that matters is your team's winning. And he's still in effect. He's a guy out there that the other team's trying to, keen in on, and they don't want to give him up a one-timer on the power play. They don't want to give him open space, and opens up other things. So it's a tough league. Every year the league gets tighter and tighter. So it's not going to be easy, but they're playing well.
Game 2 of this series saw the Nashville Predators block over 30 shots. You like to block a shot, and does that sound exciting to you? Does that sound over the top to you? What did you think of over 30 shots in a game from one team?
No, I like one shot off the middle of my shin pad once a game. That's the only shot I like to block. So let's clarify that.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
No, that was it's weird how series change and go, because game 2 there's just an onslaught of shots and they end up losing the game. And then you go to Nashville and you get outshot and win, and it's just your goaltending's so important, and they've had it. So the shot totals don't matter as long as you win the game. So it's they have to find a way to get some more pucks to the net. I know the last few games they haven't got the shot totals they want, so they got to get the puck to the net and just get it through and find ways.
Hey, Brandon, tell us what it's like to be a shutdown matchup centerman in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where shift after shift, game after game, you're going to be nose to nose in the face-off dot with one of the best, if not their best, offensive player. Tell us what that experience is like.
Yeah, it's fun, especially at home, because you always get the matchup you want. I can just remember my first playoff series. We played the Islanders. It was the first year they made the playoffs in a long time, and they had Sekeres was, I think, one of the finalists for MVP that year, and Sekeres, Okposo, and someone else was their top line, and we just felt like we were playing defense the whole game. But I know it's just a job you got to do, and I think at least for Vancouver, they're deep down the middle, so doesn't really matter which of their centermen's going out there. They have a chance to win the face-off and take care of their own end. So that's why they finished the top 3-4 team in the league this year, because they're deep down the middle and their defense are good. So it's makes it easier when your defensemen help you out. But it's fun. I think for those guys that are trying to shut down other teams' better players, where the momentum changes in the games, and when those guys start scoring too. The guys that are defending are also scoring big goals, because the power play is going to work, and everyone else can chip in.
Did you get a rush out of 0 goals, 0 assists beside McDavid's name if you had him as an assignment, or something like that? Was that just as much of a rush as raising your hands for a goal?
Yeah, if you're 0-0-0, but maybe like 52% in the face-off circle, and you're even on the night, then that's a good night against a guy like that. So and that's where you gotta. That's the kind of the whole game within the game that you watch TV, you might not realize, but you're trying to, as the home team, you're trying to get matchups, get the right defenseman out there against the right players, and again, when you have a deep team, it makes it so much easier. You play 4 lines and you can go. So I think that's, again, for the Canucks, their back end. I think any pairing they can put out there and not be too concerned with who's on the ice, and that helps your team.
Yeah, well, which brings us to Elias Lindholm. You played against him. He played down the road from you in Calgary for all those years as well. He comes to the Canucks. He's not putting up a ton of points, Brandon, but boy, what a two-way centerman he is. A word or two about his game and what you've seen from him as a Canuckan in the playoffs.
Yeah, when they picked him up, I thought that's a perfect pickup. They needed a second-line centerman, and he's just so steady and solid. And I think he put up a lot of points those years where you're playing first power play, and that's huge. He was playing with Gaudreau and Tkachuk every power play, and they were one of the best lines in the league that one year. And he put up a lot of points, but he's a two-way player. He's going to take care of his own end too. He's not a guy that's going to cheat for offense, and he's so steady there. I'm a big fan of how he plays, and I think what made Calgary good those years where they had him and Backlund, they weren't going to put up 110 points, but they were going to put up their share and be good in the face-off circle and hard to play against. And he's a very good hockey player.
Rick Tocchet announced as a Jack Adams finalist today, and we all believe he's going to get that award. You got him relatively early in his coaching career. He'd already been a head coach, mind you, with Tampa. But your thoughts on his demeanor then, and if you see any noticeable differences behind the bench? He seems so unflappable. Was he unflappable then, or did he still have some player temper in him at that point?
No, he was pretty chill. I think he was one of our assistants in Pittsburgh, and I mean, right from the get go, he's just such a likable guy. He played in the league a long time. He's got a lot of respect that way, but just an awesome guy. He'll pull you aside, have a conversation with you, and just he's a good person. And when you're a player playing for a coach, that's step number one. If you trust the guy and have some respect for the guy, you're going to play hard for him. And obviously, he's got the guys dialed in, because from the day he came in last year, everything flipped. Right from, I don't know what his record is since he's been there, but it's got to be the best in the league, or maybe Florida and hand them. But he's a solid guy, and it sounds like, just talking to the guys on the team throughout the year, they just said it just feels different this year. It just feels like the right mix of coaches and players, and I think they got a good thing going.
Do you think there's any room left in the league for, even a part-time screamer in terms of a coach? Like, it just doesn't seem like that plays anymore. Like, you have to be able to talk to these guys as almost equals, you're the boss to some degree, but it just doesn't seem like that, the old style coach is going to work here at all.
No, and I think it just goes with, I guess, a little bit of how kids are now and parenting now. It's different than it was 30 years ago. And there's things now that kids would do and say that even when I came in the league only 16 years ago, I wouldn't say or do. It was much more. It's just different. There's no way to explain it. It's just different. So you have to be able to connect with the players and understand where they're coming from, and as a coach, be a listener, not just a screamer too. So I think like system wise, I mean, every team's playing more or less the same system. Some teams are trapping up a bit more, but it's pretty much the same game right through. So as a coach, I think it's just, you got to motivate your players and find a way to get them to like you and to buy in.
I'm interested in your thoughts on the evolution of JT Miller here as a Vancouver Canuck. Brandon, you were here when the trade went down. I'm sure you followed the progress here. What did you first make of him when he arrived in Vancouver, and what are you seeing out of the player now?
Yeah, well, I'd played against him a lot before he came to Vancouver. He was the Rangers, and I was in Pittsburgh. We played against him in playoffs, I think, twice. And I think when we got him, we just knew he was a good player. So I was like, oh, he's a big forward. He can skate. And I think he was maybe more of a winger then. I don't know if he played wing and center.
Yeah, a little more of a winger, yep.
Yeah, and then he came to our team, and right away I was like, well, and then that was the year that things kind of turned around for us. We got him and Tyler Myers the same year, and it just seemed like we just got a little bit better. And Petey and Husey came along, and everyone, we just became more of a older team. And that one year we had a good year because of that. But he's such a competitive player, and he's big, he's strong, he can be mean. He just plays to win. And I know last couple of years, when things don't go well, he obviously gets a spotlight on him because he's an emotional guy, and he's not afraid to, scream at someone on the bench or whatever. But it's intensity, and it's not fun losing. So you don't want a guy that sits there and puts his tail between his legs. You want a guy that's going to go after it, and he's not afraid to get after it. And I talked about Quinn being the heartbeat of the team, but I think up front it's probably JT, because when you watch them play in the season, it's him that's forechecking, hitting a guy, grabbing a puck, making plays. He's so good on the power play now. I don't know when he became a good passer, but it wasn't when he was 22. So it must have been he was about 27, 28. Because when he was younger, he wasn't. When he's coming up on the power play and swinging up high and grabbing the puck and attacking towards the net, even in practice playing against this, you don't know where he's going to go. He's so dangerous with the puck. So just a good player, and again, he plays hard. So as a teammate, that's all you ask for a teammate, and he's awesome. So
that yin and yang though of the personalities of Miller and Hughes is nice though, isn't it? I mean, you don't want the same guy twice.
No, you don't. You don't want two JTs.
No,
he's good. It's I know we always bug him all the time because Millsy, if you ever gotten to know him really well, he likes to talk too. So it's he's a great guy in the room, but you got to have, like you said, a room full of personalities. It's good to have a mix of different guys. So you got Quinn at one end and Hughes and Millsy on the other. So it's perfect.
Were you part of these card games on the plane, Brandon? Was that your jam?
No, we had a bunch of us playing Mario Kart for a couple years. So I used to play the card game when I was in Pittsburgh, but everything was an hour flight or hour and a half flight. Once I moved out west, I was more of a play some games and take a nap guy.
Right. Gotcha. You say you still keep up with several guys on the team. Who do you keep up with?
Usually, Millsy and Mizey, Tyler and JT quite a bit. I know they're guys. Just when I was there, they were kind of about the same age as me, and we've just remained good friends. And for Tyler, our wives are still good friends too. So, but Tim and JT, and I just text with Brock and Thatcher or Quinn and Petey, just the guys I played with. And it's one thing about hockey: you're never the best friends you play with. You always end up being split apart when your career's done or when you get traded or whatever. But good to keep in touch with them, and it's I'm just, like I said, I'm happy for them to get a chance. And I went and seen a couple of them after the game at Edmonton a few weeks ago, and it was just good to catch up with them. And they're a good group of guys.
Well,
it doesn't sound like Tyler wants to leave, huh? If you had to place a ducket, would you say that he's a Vancouver Canuck next year too?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think why. I think he loves it there. His wife likes it there. They live in Kelowna, so it's close. Her family's in Kelowna. They're really close with his wife's family, and just so convenient for them. But I think when you've been with the team for a while and you've been through the struggles, once things finally get good, you don't want to leave. You want to see it through. And obviously he's going to. I'm sure his contract look a little different this time, but I think he'll be happy to stay.
He'll be okay with that. Yeah,
yeah. I think he's done all right. So
yeah,
he'll be. Hopefully he stays, because he's, like I said, their defense right now. Like I think Quinn's their youngest defenseman, and he's their best player. But after that, everyone's older veteran guys, big bodies, like just. I mean, I don't want to say it, but kind of built for the playoffs. Like they're a big team back there, and it's a good group, and he's a big part of that.
Hey, we talked with Max Lapierre yesterday, your teammate in Pittsburgh, and he said they don't make defensemen like Ian Cole anymore.
No, they don't. He came to Pittsburgh. I think my last year there, he got traded for Robert Bortuzzo. I think it was my last year. I can't remember, but I grew up playing against him in under 18s and World Junior stuff, and he was just. I mean, he's just a unit out there. He's so strong, and he's not afraid to take a puck in the face or whatever. Like he's the perfect veteran defenseman to be in your team. And with him and Myers and Zadorov and even Susie, like you don't want to go in the corners with those guys. It's not a fun place to be. So it's they got a good mix going with Quinn and the other kid. They're obviously high skilled and good players. The only reason I said other kids, I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce his last name.
Hronek, yeah. Think Jeremy with a little bit of
they got those two guys making a lot of plays, and the other guys can just shut it down. It's they got a good system going.
How confident are you they're going to win this series against Nashville?
Well, I was a lot more confident 2 days ago, but they're just a good team. I think their top guys if they can score, they'll be fine. It's just Nashville's a good team too. I mean, I think they were the best team in the league the second half, weren't they? Nashville down the stretch,
better than the Canucks anyway.
Yeah, you're playing against a team that's pretty equal to you. Might look different on paper, but I think their goalies have been good. Even though Thatcher's been out, their goalies have been good. Like they're not giving up 5-6 goals a game. It's pretty steady back there. So we'll see what happens. But I think they got to feel good. They're still up 3-2. So you just got to win. You got to win one game.
Yeah. Last question, and you were in that room earlier in the season. What would you think of a Vancouver Edmonton second round matchup? How what would be big for you as you look inside that matchup?
Western Canada torn apart.
Yeah, it'd be good. I mean, I don't know last time Canadian teams have played each other in the playoffs. I mean, maybe the 1 year Montreal played Winnipeg that bubble season, but like nothing, not real playoffs. So it'll be pretty good to see. But I think it's two good teams. I mean, the two best teams in the West, really. I mean, Edmonton started the year so slow, but after that, they were the best. And other than Dallas, I mean, I don't know who else you'd pick. Colorado, I guess. But two very good teams. Edmonton's got a lot of firepower. They can, just watching them, their power play, like they just score on command. They make it look so easy, those two guys. It's crazy. But again, different makeups of the team, but both veteran teams. So they both got a chance to win the whole thing. So we'll see what happens.
Not surprised that a Sutter would fancy a old Smythe Division Oilers second round playoff series.
That'd be good.
Brandon, amazing catching up with you, my man. Thank you so much for the time. Wish you the best there, and we'll call on you again soon here.
Hey, guys. Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Patrick Johnston covers the Vancouver Canucks for the Province and Post Media. He joins us now after a conversation with Poho Jim Rutherford, I understand. Peach.
Yeah.
What did he have to, what did Jim have to say?
Well, I opened up with how, what's your feeling on the series? Where are things at? And he goes, we're ahead by one game. And then
Thanks for that.
I thought the phone broke up. And I'm like, oh, Jim, did the phone? He goes, no, I gave you a very simple answer. We're ahead by one game. No, Jim's good. I wanted to check in on how he was thinking about. First of all, it was Norris Trophy Day. And so I wanted to get his thoughts on, Quinn Hughes. And he didn't exactly go, I told you so. But he said, listen, if you remember, and he was not wrong, you go back. And he in his introductory press conference and said, I think there's some things people here that are better than people think. And he was insisting that Quinn Hughes was one of those. And that's fair enough. Mm-hmm. The list goes on with things that he's interested in. And we talked about Elias Pettersson. He had a long pause about whether he's dealing with an injury or not, basically saying, I don't talk about injuries, whatever that means. He's a guy saying, listen, Pettersson's a player that he's not the first player to ever suffered struggles late in the season. He kind of downplayed it all. He was playing the political animal that he is, and it was very smart and very proud of the player that's going well and not worried about the player that's not going well. So didn't dig out a whole ton out of him other than, he's happy to be in the playoffs, I guess.
It's a nervy time for a lot of people. Did he just seem like this was old hat though? In his tone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's been here before. He knows how that goes. He feels good about, they feel good about the progress this team has made and the choice of coach and the direction they're going.
In some ways, if they had lost in 5 games and were never sort of in this series, I think we would have forgiven them to some degree. And yet when you go up 3-1, you're expected to win that series. I wonder if there is some internal pressure that he's feeling to make sure the team gets past this.
Oh yeah, sure. Like the one game at a time thing was very much, I don't want to talk about,
Yeah.
Look, you figure it out.
Yeah. On
the other thing I'll say is the Pettersson thing. And Pettersson himself, there's that sort of learning how to play in the playoffs aspect. Everything's tougher. He did highlight that as well. And that has been a talking point I've heard more than once. It's clearly a communications decision that they've made from the very start. Pettersson mentioned it to me before the playoffs started, which was an interesting anticipatory item from him.
Really is, Patrick.
Yeah.
Well said. That you're already talking about that before you see any results in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's almost like
forecasting your struggle.
Well, it was almost, I gotta say, like if that was a communication strategy, I hate the defeatism of it. It's almost like you gave the player an excuse, a reason.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because he struggled so much during the regular season that you felt like you had to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
But if Rutherford isn't sweating it yet, what about you? Do you think it's just a blip? Do you think it's just a first time through the Stanley Cup playoffs, or do you think there's something more significant at play?
Yeah. Well, I go back and forth. I think we've talked about this before. he will never tell us if he's dealing with an injury. I mean, sounds like he was pretty defensive yesterday, just being asked about some simple, what happened here, what happened there. There was the 2-on-1 that everyone kind of has highlighted, and I've watched it a bunch of times. And are we looking the right way? But there's people who say, listen, there's just no stick flex there. He's not putting a lot of downforce on the shot. I do take note that he hit Saros in the mask, dead center, as opposed to trying to pick the corner, which is what he usually is trying to do. So, and he missed the net on that one opportunity. Are his mechanics all there? I think the best conclusion is no. And most likely that would lead you to believe that he's dealing with some kind of wrist injury. I mean, J-Pat was pointing out that he's been taping his wrist again. There's been a tape job he's traditionally had, which has purely been about comfort. I mean, you ask any physio about what that tape job is, and it's nothing for support or anything like that. So there's that possibility. There's also just the one that a lot of people are just saying it's just all between the ears, and he's just sort of struggling with the fact that it's not working. I mean, if you go back over his career, this is a stretch that has never really happened before. At any other level, he's always been able to produce, and now he's hit the wall a little bit in terms of how you're being scouted. I mean, that was the interesting thing I would say that Rutherford mentioned was, on the other hand, here's Pettersson, who is having to learn about how you're getting scouted. You have to adapt to how they adapt to you. And that perhaps that's just the simple thing here. It's the simplest explanation. There's two simple explanations. He's dealing with a wrist injury, or he's just hasn't figured out how to adapt to the way he's being defended, and he's got to do something different. And there's a cascade effect off that. It's one or the other. I have asked a number of people what's going on, and everyone just kind of generally shrugs and thinks he's just got to play better. But so whether he's injured or not, nobody's saying it behind the scenes.
So just more on the comms strategy here. Like, they sat down or they got speaking points to Rutherford, Pettersson, and others about his first time through the playoff. Like, expand on that a little.
I don't know. It just there's an interesting pattern there. Like, Pettersson kind of mentioned, like, when I talked to him before the playoffs, and I said, listen, did the bubble matter, right? And he basically went, no, bubble was awful. And he mentioned about the noise and the fans and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And now it's come back. Here we are, 2 weeks later, and in many ways it's a standard old boring narrative, but it's one they have been talking about consistently. Like I said, maybe there's nothing there. Maybe it's just coincidence. But I did find it interesting, and he brought it up yesterday. That was the one thing I caught from the sort of the bits that came out of his scrum yesterday, was him mentioning how it's loud. But he played in Sweden. Sweden's fans are loud, so I kind of.
Did he play in Latvia?
Yeah, you haven't experienced
true
high pressure situations.
No,
true. Yeah. Anyway, at the end of the day, like, he says, I got to move my feet. I mean, we saw him move his feet, and he got on a 2-on-1, right? Just do that.
That was the fastest I've seen him skate in like forever.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mostly whether he's hurt or not, he is playing, and they need him to produce. And this is what I wrote on the eve of the playoffs. He needs to find a way to be a contributor, and offensively, he has not been that.
Is Lotto Line the salvation, or is spreading the wealth still the idea?
I mean, listen, I'm not the first person to point out that the collection of wingers that he's had for the most part has been underwhelming.
Yeah.
We know why they were so interested in a top 6 winger going into the deadline when they didn't have him signed, because they thought maybe this is it. And then they signed him, and it's very clear. Like, I asked Patrick Alvin if that signing changed his view, and it did. That opened up a 3-year window. So they didn't have to race into finding the right guy to play with Pettersson. And now we can see the consequences of that decision, which is that it's Ilya Mikheyev. I've been thinking a lot about sort of the series of wingers he's played with over the years. And he had Brock Besser for a long time, right? And now he's got Nils Höglander. And Höglander, I think, has been better. I talked to him after the game on Tuesday, and I said, listen, I've had some suggestions that maybe you were going too hard, too fast in the first couple of games. And he basically said, yeah, I think we found our way and we're settling in and we're playing better. And I don't think he's wrong. That said, Neil, when was the last time you really thought, oh, there's a great shot from Nils Höglander, right? Like that whole line has not been working, and there are no alternatives. I mean, Sam Lafferty who started on the wing there is, let's be real, not an option. I suppose you could put Connor Garland back up there and maybe see what works there. To me, it's not going to Lotto. That's just too many eggs in one basket. You need to have Pettersson's lines going, because that's going to be the difference to finish the series. You're playing a one-line team. You turn yourself into a one-line team. What if you lose that battle? I think you keep going with the way you have. The Miller line's been playing great. Now let's find a way to get the Pettersson line going.
2 shots for Nils Höglander in the series.
Yeah.
So you haven't seen many good ones because there haven't been any, period.
Yeah.
Was there a calm strategy about his first time through the playoffs as well, Patrick?
I certainly haven't heard that one.
Did that go for every first time through the Stanley Cup playoffs?
His high water mark for minutes, guys, is 10:34. Like he's barely getting a regular shift.
But he hasn't earned it.
No.
Like I would be outraged about that if I thought it was unfair, but I think it's patently fair.
Yeah. Our assessment is at this point been the same as the coaches, and it's because in the end he's not done anything early in the game, and when crunch times come late in the game, they have gone with Lotto late in the game, right? Like they've tried to find a goal that way, and that's the other thing is the 5-on-5 story is, what are they average 18 shots a game? Like, if you want to understand why this team isn't generating enough, you can look at the Pettersson line as a big story why. They're just not generating anything, and Pettersson and Höglander need to be better. It's pretty simple.
Well, it's really everybody outside of JT Miller and Quinn Hughes has to be better. Brock had him a game. Joshua and Garland had them one game.
I'll give Zadorov.
Zadorov and Lindholm have been pretty good, I would say. In fact, we were talking yesterday, like who's immune from criticism here? Who have we liked through the series beyond Miller and Hughes? Like, is that list Zadorov and that's it? Or is that list Zadorov and Lindholm and that's it? Like, how
it's a quieter one, but I think Tyler Myers has been an effective player, but like that's, not a standout, but he's done his job. I mean, it was interesting on Monday. I went to, they had a morning press conference, and Tocchet listed all the defensemen but Filip Hronek. Hronek's playing a ton because he's the Hughes sidekick. But like, I all I could think of after the game when Tocchet mentioned, there's a few people trying slap passes that are too hard. All I could think of was one that Filip Hronek tried that went like through the end boards. And I don't think he's
ice one.
Yeah, there's a cross ice. Yeah, there's a cross ice. Sorry, and we went into the corner.
How are you doing? Like,
and I think there's been a few of those lately, and so I do find myself wondering. I mean, everyone's talking about the Zadorov versus Hronek question. I think the answer is becoming more and more obvious, and it's not keeping Filip Hronek. They're going to obviously have to find a new partner for Hughes, but wait. I mean, if you move on,
you think they're moving off Hronek?
I think so. I mean, if you can get him for cheaper, like if he really wants $8 million a year, there's no way you're sticking with that, and I don't think they will do that.
So you see a trade for a right shot top 4 defenseman?
Well, there's a few interesting free agents. Like Sean Walker could be a free agent. Matt Roy could be a free agent. Like there are options out there this summer.
Yeah, those aren't Filip Hronek.
Pesci and Montour being the UFAs, but they're going to be $8
Montour,
million.
But
they're going to be $8 million players too.
Yeah, it just depends on what you think that player is going to be and what you think that player brings to the table. And I'm not convinced that Rick Tocchet is a fan of Filip Hronek at this point. I mean, he has them, he uses them. But I think in the long run, if you are given alternatives, I'm not sure that's the guy you want.
Okay, we got plenty of time to debate that. A head-to-head of Jack Adams finalists here in Brunette and Tocchet.
Yeah.
Is Rick Tocchet being outcoached. I don't know that there's evidence of that per se, but he's certainly not winning the coaching battle. Is it a tie?
It's pretty close. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're differing styles that they're looking for their team from their team. I at the end of the day, he needs the guys to put the puck in the net, but he needs guys to create more and move your feet is the mantra for Pettersson. You know, when I talked to Höglander, he said we need to shoot. He essentially said we need to shoot better. You know, like if you look at the last game, there were a lot of scoring chances they created, but they still didn't hit the net. And Nashville obviously is doing a very good job of getting in front of shots. And so, does that mean release quicker? Does that mean stop passing? I mean, the rhetoric you get from Tocchet is the frustration he sees of them not generating shots and overpassing, all this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, this is the system you designed. So
did game 2 scar them? Like, did game 2 just make them so afraid of getting a shot blocked?
I don't think so. Like so much of what they're doing is what they've been doing for the second half of the season, right?
Mhm.
Like trying to generate messes in front of the net and find rebounds and tips. Like if there's a criticism of Rick Tocchet, it's that they are rather one-dimensional on offense, right? Like they're not a great rush team. Nashville at least has a rush element to their game. The key to Tocchett's success is he's got this team playing a very, very strong, stout defensive game. Like that point shot goal from Carrier on Tuesday. Like that was a team that had recognized that Shilov's has been having troubles with long range shots. And they've been trying a bunch of those, right? Like that's scouting out what you think is going to have to happen. It comes back to that thing that Rutherford said about Pettersson specifically, but you know, take it more generally. Like, how are you guys adapting to what they are doing? And I would say, on the whole, on Tuesday, the Canucks had adapted their game. They were controlling play. That first period, they deserved to score, and they didn't get one. UC Saros made some big saves. He had some big moments. That's the other part of this series that we're probably not talking about enough, is that the goalie, when he's been needed at the Predators' end, has been outstanding. Canucks goalies have been fine, but you know, have they really? I mean, Demko made that save in game 1, but since then, have we really seen a Shilovs or DeSmith save that matches that save that Saros made in game 2 on Pius Suter, or the save he made on Brock Besser, or the saves he made on Brock Besser in the last game? You know, that there is an element here of getting big performances, in the Canucks at the end of the day, you know, like we've already said, have gotten big performances from JT Miller. They had a big performance in game 4, in game 4 from Brock Besser. They've had big performances in Nikita Zadorov. They just need another couple of those to get over this final hump.
So let me ask it this way. If the Canucks somehow lose this series with the same 12 forwards playing in roughly the same 12 positions, and the same 6 defensemen playing in roughly the same 6 slots, will that stain this coaching season from Rick Tocchet? Will Tocchet have some explaining to do that he just didn't make more adjustments on the personnel side as the series went along, with no shots on goal, with very few goals, with an impotent power play, yada, yada, yada?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be definitely a question. That the power play up and down is a great point. You know, there's a group that could have made a difference last game. They didn't barely even got in the zone, right? Like they did not do anything because Nashville was stopping them once they got in the zone and reading what they were doing every time. There's certainly adjustments or lack of adjustments that we can quiz, and the lineup thing, how you swap around your wingers. There's a little bit of me thinking about the old Travis Green line to J-Pat, which was, this is who we have. And then Travis Green was fired the next day. Now, he wasn't fired because of that comment. That was the roster. You are, in the end, beholden to the roster you have. And, you know, at the deadline, going to the deadline, we said they really did need another forward. Like, that was something that everyone was talking about for ages. And, in the end of the day, here they are. So
would Jason Zucker have been that forward? Like a guy of that level?
Yeah,
Yeah.
look at how he's played. I mean, in the end, was Nashville willing to trade him? Did they see this run? They were in the middle of a strong run. Barry Trotz probably said, no, I don't really want to trade this guy. So even if there was interest from the Canucks' part, was he going anywhere? He certainly would have added something. There's absolutely no doubt. Having seen him for 5 games, there's a guy that causes a ruckus, knows how. I mean, he knows how to play. You've seen him enough over the years.
Not exactly a trigger man anymore.
No,
for Elias Pettersson.
No, but an energy guy that plays with more energy than Ilya Mikheyev, right? Like you put him on that wing, and I think he's just going to get more happening. I mean, I think Mikheyev's been fine, but he hasn't been a second line winger. That's the difference. And I think Zucker right now, even if he's not quite the player he was, is still a better fit. Would have been a better fit for that line.
They might have that winger, Nils Höglander. He's just not playing well. He's just not playing well.
No, it's his first time through the Stanley Cup playoffs, Blake.
That's true.
There was a memo on this. Did you not get the memo?
Must have gone to junk.
On Zucker, they would have needed some brokerage or send money back.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm not sure Nashville would have done it, but I'm not sure Nashville wouldn't have done it because they were kind of a 1 foot in, 1 foot out deadline team. They were kind of a straddling team by the way the moves they made.
Yeah.
And it was clear they needed a winger. It was clear they were looking for guys they had familiarity with. All of the things connect on Zucker.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford are having recriminations going, we weren't as all in as we should have been on that winger. And sure enough, it's not only coming home to bite us in terms of we're too thin on the wing, but the guy we specifically targeted has been, is playing against us and playing well and helping them.
Well, and the other guy
in the series.
And then there's the other guy, Tyler Toffoli, who ended up playing on the 4th line for Winnipeg, and Winnipeg's already done, and that was the one that was probably that one we could see how achievable it was. They would have had to probably let loose one of their prospects. And I have to believe that Toffoli would have been interested in sticking around. Because he certainly was interested in sticking around the first time.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we'll never know, but I do think what's shaping up here is the story of the Canucks being so aggressive on Zadorov, on Lindholm, and then losing their nerve a little bit at the poker table, and that's cost them personnel-wise in this series and perhaps beyond. Patrick, marvelous stuff as always, my friend. We thank you for this. Look forward to our conversation next week when we'll either be talking about round 2 or we'll be talking about a Vancouver Canucks collapse for the ages.
The home
Canucks could be down 2 games to the Oilers at this time next week. We'll find out.
The home of the Nation Network, guys. Just make sure you remember that, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, we have to mind our P's and Q's if that series comes to pass.
I will be minding no P nor a Q.
Back. Guys.
You picking fights. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.